The cameras saw a handshake. The world saw a visit. But those who understand the game saw something far more dangerous and far more promising. In Ankara, from August 6 to 11, 2025, Senegal's Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko wasn't just crossing a border, he was crossing a line in history. This was not about polite speeches or staged photos. This was about shifting the balance of power in Africa. One axis at a time. And in the quiet spaces between public events, where the cameras were not allowed, something else was taking shape, something that could either make Senegal a sovereign architect of its own destiny, or trap it in a new, more subtle kind of cage. If you believe Africa's story should be told by Africans, stay until the end. Because what happened in Ankara may just redraw the map of the continent. From August 6 to 11, 2025, at the invitation of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Sonko's visit carried an official agenda: strengthen bilateral ties, sign strategic agreements, expand cooperation in defense, economy, and education. But unofficially, it was the latest move in a deliberate shift, away from the old monopolies of the West, toward a multipolar diplomacy rooted in sovereignty. Following President Diomaye's 2024 visit to Ankara and Sonko's economic mission to China in July 2025, Turkey now stands as Dakar's second major non-Western partner. The question is no longer if Senegal is moving, but how far it's willing to go. And to understand that, we must look at the map from above and see the game unfolding. In geopolitics, location is not just a line on a map, it is leverage. And Senegal's location is a card few nations can play. On the westernmost edge of Africa, Dakar looks out over the Atlantic like a sentinel. To the north lies Europe. To the west, the vast ocean highways to the Americas. To the east, the Sahel, a corridor of both promise and peril. For Turkey, this is not just geography, it is strategy. Since 2010, Ankara has been weaving a web across Africa, over 40 embassies. Military cooperation in 25 countries, trade volumes exceeding $10 billion a year. Not as a charity, not as a passing trend, but as a deliberate counterweight to older powers. For President Erdogan, the African arc is incomplete without a stronghold in West Africa's francophone heart. And Senegal, stable and strategically placed, is the keystone he's been waiting for. But this partnership is not one-sided. For Dakar, Turkey offers something the West no longer can: investment without humiliation. No policy sermons about governance as a prerequisite for loans. No fine print that quietly shifts control of national resources. Turkish deals arrive with cranes, concrete, and engineers, building the Abdou Diouf International Conference Center, the Abdoulaye Wade Stadium, new roads linking Diamniadio to Blaise Diagne Airport. This is the appeal: tangible results. Stadiums that fill with crowds instead of dust. Roads that move goods instead of trapping them in traffic. Schools that train engineers and welders, not just produce degrees for export. And on defense, Turkey's offer is transformative: Bayraktar TB2 drones, armored vehicles, cybersecurity training, a chance for Senegal to watch its skies and guard its coasts with its own hands. In American terms, this is not foreign aid, it is a playbook exchange. Think of the Marshall Plan after World War II, a massive investment not to dominate, but to rebuild and anchor an ally's independence. Or think of a quarterback calling an audible in the NFL: the defense sees the shift, but doesn't know the play. The element of surprise becomes power. Yet, this is no rookie move. Senegal has studied the Turkish model carefully. From the shipyards of Istanbul to the drone factories of Dakar, Ankara has built industries that feed its own economy and project power abroad. President Bassirou Diomaye Faye and Prime Minister Sonko see in that model a blueprint for Senegal 2050, an economy that manufactures what it consumes, adds value before exporting, and defends itself without outsourced security. And here is the deeper calculation: shared identity. Both nations are majority Muslim, proud of their history, and positioned as bridges between regions. Turkey calls itself the gateway between Europe and Asia. Senegal, with equal pride, is the gateway between the Atlantic and the Sahel. But make no mistake, in geopolitics, even friendships are transactions. Aligning with Turkey sends a message to Paris, Brussels, and Washington: Dakar is no longer content with a seat at someone else's table. It will build its own table, choose its own guests. And to its neighbors in the Sahel, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, the signal is just as clear: sovereignty is not just a slogan, it is a strategy. The question, however, is whether this strategy will remain truly Senegalese, or whether the very tools that build its independence could, in time, become the strings that bind it. Power leaves footprints. And in Senegal, Turkey's footprints are made of steel, glass, and asphalt. The Abdou Diouf International Conference Center rises like a monument to ambition. The Abdoulaye Wade Stadium, built by the Turkish giant Suma Group, gleams under the Dakar sun. Roads now slice through bottlenecks, linking Diamniadio to Blaise Diagne Airport. These are not press releases. They are realities. And in the background, more than 60 Turkish companies operate quietly, their annual trade with Senegal surpassing $400 million, building not just infrastructure, but influence. For Erdogan, Senegal is a showcase, proof that Turkey can deliver faster, cheaper, and with fewer political strings than its Western rivals. For Sonko, this is proof that partnerships can be practical without being paternalistic. Yet here lies the paradox: every foreign-built bridge also becomes a bridge for influence to cross. Western capitals are watching with narrowed eyes. Paris, long accustomed to thinking of Dakar as a reliable partner under its Franc-Afrique sphere, now sees an emerging axis it cannot steer. In Brussels, debates rage: should the EU engage with Turkey's African footprint or work to counter it? In Washington, analysts ask whether Turkey is acting as a bridge between the West and Africa, or a wedge that will widen the cracks in Western influence. Inside Africa, the response is mixed. The Sahel states, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, who have embraced sovereignty-first doctrines, see Dakar's pivot as validation, perhaps even an invitation. But in other African capitals, leaders wonder: is Senegal stepping into leadership, or into a dependency dressed in new colors? And here is where the stakes rise. The Senegal 2050 vision is bold: a sovereign industrial power, reducing dependence on France, the IMF, and the World Bank, transforming raw materials at home, and investing heavily in its youth. But bold visions need resources, technology, and political space, and that is where Ankara comes in. Turkey is not offering empty gestures. It is proposing energy partnerships in solar and gas to move Senegal toward energy independence. It is proposing infrastructure projects, roads, bridges, railways that could even extend toward Mali. It is offering to co-build agro-industrial plants to process local products, keeping more value within Senegal's borders. It is pledging cooperation in defense, drones, armored vehicles, joint training, and coastal surveillance systems. And in education, it is ready to expand Turkish schools and create technical universities. On paper, this is a dream. In practice, it is a negotiation. Every offer comes with an expectation, even if unspoken. In geopolitics, there is no such thing as a free runway. The question is not whether Senegal will benefit, it will. The question is whether those benefits will be worth the leverage they cost. Think of it like American football: the quarterback has the ball, the clock is running down, and the defense is closing in. Every pass is a risk: throw too soon and you waste the play. Hold too long and you get sacked. Sonko is on that field, the Ankara skyline his stadium, Erdogan the rival coach who might also be a future teammate. And yet, there is another layer. This partnership is also about symbolism: two majority Muslim nations projecting a shared image of independence in a multipolar world. Ankara presents itself as a bridge between Europe and Asia. Dakar can now present itself as a bridge between the Atlantic and the Sahel. Together, they could be more than trade partners, they could be co-architects of a new African narrative. But as every strategist knows, symbolism can cut both ways. What inspires some will alarm others. And the speed of Senegal's pivot, from Beijing in July to Ankara in August, is fast enough to unsettle even friendly observers. Which brings us to the present moment in Ankara, August 2025. The official schedule lists ceremonies, photo ops, and press briefings. But the real agenda is inside the private meeting rooms. There, on the table, are agreements that could transform Senegal's economy and security. Energy, solar fields, gas pipelines, technical expertise. Infrastructure, highways, bridges, rail links. Agriculture, machinery for processing and packaging, co-owned facilities. Defense, drones, armored units, joint training bases. Education, scholarships. Vocational centers, technical universities. None of this is accidental. Each project is a lever, capable of lifting Senegal towards sovereignty, or tethering it to new obligations. In these rooms, translators pause before delivering each sentence. Every handshake is followed by a glance at the clock. Every nod is a calculation. This is not theater, this is chess played in whispers. And then, the moment. The cameras are ushered out. The heavy wooden doors close. No journalists. No public statements. Just Sonko, Erdogan, their closest advisors, and the weight of a continent pressing in on the air. Inside, words are chosen like weapons. Silence is used as a tactic. Faces give nothing away. What Sonko agrees to, or refuses, in these hours will ripple far beyond Senegal's borders. It could anchor Dakar as the master of its own destiny, or bind it into a web whose threads are invisible until they tighten. The door has closed. The air inside is heavy. No cameras. No reporters. Only two leaders, their closest advisors, and the weight of decisions that could redraw Africa's map. Outside, the world guesses, running scenarios, drafting headlines in advance. Inside, every word is a move. Every pause is a tactic. And every handshake carries the gravity of history. This is not just about contracts or investments. It is about the kind of Africa that will emerge, one that stands on its own, or one that leans on a different pillar. We are standing at the hinge of history, and it is turning in silence. When that door opens, it will not just be Sonko and Erdogan who step out. It will be a new chapter for Senegal. For the Sahel, and perhaps for the entire continent. What do you think is being decided in there? Comment your guess. Share this so others can join the conversation. And be here for Chapter 2, when the silence breaks. And the truth comes out.